Hello, listeners. And here we are again. Happy as can be. All good friends and jolly good company down the red rabbit hole. Welcome back. You must love it here because you keep coming back to join us. And we're very, very pleased that you do. Nikki, have you come back again?
I never left, Lisa.
Oh, yeah.
That's just the way it is.
We're banished.
You won't let me out. We're
I
banished.
forgot.
We're stuck. You keep asking me, and it just feels like a bit of a tease, like I could get out.
Might need to think of a different way to introduce you in then. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll do a bit better next time. I'll think of a different intro. I thought I was doing quite well there. I'd done something a bit different. No.
You did. You were great.
Oh, well. It's all gone to pot now, but don't worry because we have another wonderful author with us this week, Alis Hawkins. Alice, are you there?
I'm here indeed, Lisa.
Hello and welcome to the Red Rabbit Hole.
Thank you. Very excited.
Thank you so much for coming. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, gosh. So I live in the Forest of Dean, which nobody's ever heard of. It's in West Gloucestershire, just over the Wales-England border. So we're 4 miles from Wales. I'm originally from Ceredigion in South Wales, although I don't sound like it. I speak Welsh with a Welsh accent and English with an English accent. So there you go.
Can you say something in Welsh? I kind of enjoy just listening.
Dwi'n siarad Cymraeg gyda acen Cymraeg a Saesneg gyda acen Saesneg.
What was that?
Brilliant.
I said I speak Welsh with a Welsh accent and English with an English accent.
Oh, say welcome to the Red Rabbit Hole in Welsh for all our Welsh listeners.
Okay. Croeso i'r twll coch y Bwningod.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. We don't know if it's correct. You could have said anything, Lisa, to be honest.
And we're just going to put that out. We're just going to share that.
As I was saying that, I thought, oh my gosh, this sounds quite rude in Welsh.
No.
Oh, that's just the way we like it. We've spent quite a long time discussing if the Red Rabbit Hole is a euphemism.
I know.
And maybe it's a euphemism in Welsh.
It sounds like one, put it that way.
It does, doesn't it?
And please tell us about your book. So, well, I did notice that we have a bit of an affinity, Alice. See, you wanted to be a shepherd when you were younger, and I am, of course, a shepherd.
Indeed.
But not really, only in name. Not like actually in reality.
Alice, don't let her drag you down into this rabbit hole with her, because I went once and it's not good.
I was saying I don't have an affinity with sheep. Do you feel that you have an affinity with sheep?
Well, do you know, it's very odd that I thought I should be a shepherd. And I do remember saying that to my best friend at school, because my real affinity is with cows. I love cows. I grew up on a dairy farm and I used to do stock judging at the Young Farmers Rallies. So I don't know why I suddenly had this thing about being a shepherd. I think it was something a bit different, a bit more romantic, striding around the hills by myself, having great thoughts. Yeah, I'm yet to have great thoughts, to be perfectly honest. But to talk about my books, I have, in terms of crime writing, I have 2 series. One set where I grew up in West Wales in the Teifi Valley, which runs between Ceredigion, which used to be called Cardiganshire, Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire.
Cardiganshire?
Cardiganshire.
Like the cardigan you wear?
As in the cardigan you wear, yes, because Lord Cardigan, who was, well, I don't suppose he had anything to do with West Wales at all, but he was, given that title. Apparently he invented the cardigan, or...
Did he? Like Lord Sandwich invented the sandwich, is that right?
And Wellington invented the Wellington...
Earl of Sandwich. Yes!
Yeah, exactly. And Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire. So, yeah. And there are 4 books in that series, 2 of which were shortlisted for the CWA Historical Dagger. I now have 2, writing the 3rd in my current series, the Oxford Mysteries. And the first one in that has been shortlisted for the Historical Dagger. And I'm waiting with bated breath because it's the Daggers Award dinner a week tomorrow.
Ooh.
So, no, Thursday.
Alice, have you got your acceptance speech sorted?
No, I don't want to jinx it. You see, I've bought a frock which is, again, if you know me, you think, good Lord, Alis Hawkins has bought a frock. That's something. But I kind of feel if I write the speech, oh, that's going a step too far. That makes it feel as if I think I'm going to win, and that would be, oh gosh, that would be a bit hubristic, wouldn't it? Because it's a very small business.
I think I'd plan out every eventuality just in case. I'd have a speech. I'd have my face, practice to make sure that I'm giving good face when the camera swings to me, and I'm like, I've won, and I'd be like, I'm great, and everyone else sucks. Or if I didn't win, I'd be like, that they won, they did a good thing, rather than me looking really sneery and like, can't believe you won.
You've got to practice both faces, haven't you? You've got to be ready.
Oh gosh, the trouble is though, isn't it? I remember being on telly once and somebody said, just look natural. And I suddenly forgot what natural looks like. You just think, what a terrible thing to say. Don't mention being natural. And I suddenly thought, I don't know how my face should be. I suddenly forgot how to breathe, how to sit. Oh my Lord, it was ridiculous.
It's so true, isn't it? If you listen to the early podcast, just talk normally. What? There's one where I'm going, I'm trying to put on a bit of a voice. I think this is what you should do.
When you put on the voice, you can't really keep it up, can you? You may just as well be yourself from the beginning, otherwise
it'll all fall apart. Yeah.
But actually, I'm going to be practicing looking normal in front of the camera tomorrow because I'm on Welsh telly. Oh, afternoon telly tomorrow. Yes. Got to go down to Llanelli and speak Welsh in front of the camera.
I was quite intrigued, Alice, because your character, Harry Probert Lloyd, and I've probably said that wrong, is visually impaired investigator.
Yeah.
Isn't he? Yeah, so tell us a little bit how you made that choice and maybe what rabbit holes you went down doing some research.
Well, both, yeah. So I needed something which would take him back home because Harry left West Wales on the heels of the Rebecca riots, which is what the first book is about. He kind of got a bit involved and got in over his head, and it all got a bit much, and his father sent him off to Oxford early to get him out of the way, and then he went straight from Oxford to train as a barrister in London, and that's where he's been ever since. He's now 26. He's been in London for kind of 4 or 5 years. Had no real intention of going back because he thought, oh, I don't want to go back and face all of that. So I needed something which would force him back. And because I knew I wanted him to investigate a murder, it couldn't be anything which was going to stop him riding around the countryside. So it couldn't really be a physical disability that was bad enough to take him back from London, because if it was bad enough to take him back from London, it'd be bad enough to stop him moving around. So I was left with either going deaf or going blind, both of which would mean that he would find it very difficult to practice as a barrister. And as an ex-speech and language therapist, I know that being deaf cuts you off socially more than being blind does, unless you're an incredible lip reader, which people who go deaf as an adult aren't on the whole. So I made him blind, but I didn't want to make him completely blind. Because the vast majority of visually impaired people are not 100% blind. Because I needed him to be able to see a bit, so he didn't, crash into the furniture and be completely pathetic. So I gave him Stargardt's disease, which is a juvenile form of macular degeneration. So he's got no central vision, he's only got peripheral vision. So I think he actually says in the first book, I can see, but I can't look. So he can't actually focus on anything. So he can't read, he can't see faces. He can only see that people are there in his peripheral vision, which means that he can get about, but he's got no useful vision. So he needs a helper to read stuff, to watch people's faces, to see if they're lying, this kind of thing. So he employs somebody he thinks is just going to be a general purpose assistant, John Davis. But John comes into the book and he sort of takes over and becomes Harry's equal. It's interesting, actually, because when I first started None So Blind, I thought it was going to be a standalone. But I just fell in love completely with the research, the area, my own area, about which I knew stunningly little, in the way we all know very little about the history of where we live. So I fell in love with that, and I also fell in love with Harry and John. So, there are currently 4 in the series, and there will be more.
Many years ago, on a training that I did, they had different glasses that we had to try that had different levels of visual impairment on them. And I remember trying a pair where you couldn't see central, you could only see in periphery, and then also the opposite as well, where you had almost like tunnel. You could see very, very close down, but not anything else than that. And it's really amazing how quickly you get really disconcerted about the space around you. So I kind of knew the dimensions of the room, but I hadn't thought about how much of that information comes into you visually.
Oh, it's amazing.
So I was suddenly like, gosh, suddenly this room feels huge to me. I know because I have a memory of what it looks like that it's not that big. But now it suddenly feels really, really big. And when you're outside, there's so much sounds and everything suddenly becomes very heightened. And that was just, a training on an afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had to kind of enter Harry's physical space and discover all of that. And I remember thinking, gosh, we rely so much as human beings on our visual sense. We kind of demote all the other senses. And they become heightened when you lose your visual sense. People say, oh, you develop sort of extra senses. Well, you don't. You just use them better. In a way, we're just very lazy about our other senses. So yeah, it was fascinating. Somebody else has told me about these glasses, and I wish I'd had a pair, because instead of that, I used to wander around the place with one of my eyes closed and one finger in front of the central part of my other eye, wandering around trying to see what it would be like only to have central vision. Peripheral vision. I would literally wander around the countryside locally, and I'm sure people thought I was completely nuts. What's the matter with this one? Why is she pointing at her own eye and closing the other one? Is she a complete lunatic? Yeah.
I'm trying it right now, by the way.
Yeah.
Please don't.
It's really interesting because, like I said, it was a plot device to get Harry home. But once I started getting into his mental space and his physical space, I realised how much extra richness giving him that disability brought to the book, actually, in terms of his own emotional responses to it, in terms of other people's responses to him, in terms of just seeing the way that we as human beings see the world in a slightly different way. And of course, it makes him pay attention to witnesses in a way that John, who still can see, doesn't. So that they bring different things to the table in that sense. He's listening out for people's tells and changes in voice and what have you, which we just don't do when we can see people.
Yeah, like literally looking for those things that are going on in your peripheries.
Yeah, 100%.
He is not the only visually impaired investigator that I have read a book on.
Really? Do tell.
Yes, I have another one. And this is mainly because, Alice, I have children.
Okay.
But my daughter has read Toto the Ninja Cat series. And Toto the Ninja Cat is a visually impaired cat who's also a ninja. And goes, oh, no, she. I'm saying he. I shouldn't say that. My daughter will tell me off. She's a she. Toto's a she, and has a brother called Silver. It's a Dermot O'Leary series of books.
Okay.
But it just suddenly I thought, it's not the first time, but I haven't read many. Is it quite a common?
I think I'd prefer to read Alice's.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I've written down Toto the Ninja Cat. I'm I thought Harry Robert Lloyd was the only one, but competition, man.
They're children's, but from Dermot O'Leary as well. I'm sure.
Maybe he can adopt a cat in the next one, so it's a bit of a nod to Toto.
Oh, now that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, a little Easter egg for the Toto fans.
Well, what's brilliant in the series is the person who, the cat who employs them for their jobs, is Larry the cat. And of course, Larry the cat is actually the cat who lives in number 10 Downing Street. So they have a Larry the cat that they go and visit who lives at number 10 Downing Street and runs the Cats Protection. No, it can't be the Cats Protection League.
That would also be funny.
So, Alice, tell us about your Oxford Mystery series, because that's the one that, not so much of a true crime, but I think a kind of change in law that you want to talk about that was a massive rabbit hole that you dived down for that series and especially for your new book.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'd written 5 books in a row with 2 young men as main characters. One one was a medieval kind of psychological thriller set during the Black Death with 2 young men as main characters, and then the 4 Harry and John books. And I just wanted to rest. I wanted to see things through the eyes of a woman for a change. So I talked to my publisher and I said just that. And I said, I've got a contemporary crime proposal. And they went, no, you are a historical crime writer. We're not interested in publishing anything contemporary from you, which is probably wise, actually. What we'd like to see you do is write something set in either Oxford or Cambridge, because brand recognition. They said, with the best will in the world, your West Wales books are lovely, but nobody outside Britain's ever heard of Wales, never mind West Wales, never mind West Wales history. But Oxford, everybody said Oxford and Cambridge. And obviously, as an Oxford graduate, Cambridge just wasn't going to cut it for me, sorry, and all that. So I said, yeah. And they didn't mind when, which period of history that I set it in. So to me, once they'd suggested Oxford, there was only one period. You put strong female character together with Oxford as a setting, and you come up with the beginning of the women's college movement, when everything was changing in Oxford. That we're in kind of proto-suffragette territory here. There were suffragists. The suffragettes hadn't quite got their act together, but there was a lot of women's rights campaigning. Lots of laws were changing, and women were beginning to properly campaign for some form of equality. Not just the vote, but other things. So hence the Oxford Mysteries was born. And I didn't want to abandon West Wales. I mean, apart from anything else, I'm one of the founder members of Crime Cymru, which is the Welsh crime writers collective. So it would have been a bit odd if I'd suddenly started just going down the English rabbit hole. So I took a young woman from the Tyvi Valley, which is where my other series is set, to Oxford to study. And that's Non Vaughan, who is a bit of a cat among the pigeons in Oxford, because Oxford at the time was incredibly genteel, respectable, very, very middle class, very conservative with a small c. And Non is none of those things. She's working class, she's self-educated, she's a bit beyond being a tomboy. She's her father's only child, and he's a sea captain and has had her working on his ship at her request, not his. So she's been amongst men a lot. She's done physical work. She's learned how to defend herself against men. She's been the cleverest person she knows pretty much all her life. And suddenly she's in Oxford with a lot of other clever people, although I think she still secretly thinks she's probably cleverest. And she's expected to do things like go about with a chaperone and wear corsets and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, no, not happening. This, I'll play the game to the extent that I don't get thrown out, but that's it. I'm not doing all of that. And so she chooses not to live at one of the new female students' halls, Somerville and Lady Margaret Hall. Instead, she lodges with a distant cousin in Oxford. And Lily Maddox, the said distant cousin, becomes quite a main character in the books. And because she is from West Wales, and because it's only 30 years after the Tyvi Valley coroner, the period during which the Tyvi Valley coroner was set, she actually knows Harry Probert Lloyd and John Davis, and has done a little bit of work with Benton Reckitt, who is Harry's medical witness. So she inserts herself into the investigation into a murder in the first book, and manages to do it, and is very instrumental in finding what's actually happened there, working with the other character, the other viewpoint character, Basil Rice, who is a Jesus College Don in Oxford. And again, there's a Welsh connection there, because Jesus College was then very connected to Wales. In fact, if you wanted to study there, you had to be from Wales. And it's only about 10 years, I think, during the period that my books are set, since men from England were allowed to actually teach there. So it was very, very Welsh. So they, in the first book, A Bitter Remedy, they investigate the murder of Sidney Parker, who is a Jesus College undergraduate. And now, at the beginning of the new book, The Skeleton Army, they're confronted with the death of a Salvation Army soldier. And Basil, for reasons which will become very clear when you read the book, finds himself involved in investigating. And of course, again, Non thinks, great, if he's investigating, I get to go in on the coattails of this. And meanwhile, Non has actually begun a journalistic career in parallel with studying. So she's also writing things for the local paper, and really, really, really wants to write a story about the death of this Salvation Army soldier and its relationship to the opposition to the Salvation Army, which is called the Skeleton Army. And that's the topic.
That sounds really macabre, the Skeleton Army. So that was real, obviously. I mean, you jumped down that rabbit hole and you found the Skeleton Army down there.
Yeah, yes. I do a lot of my research in contemporary newspapers. And I read just a throwaway line about the Salvation Army, and I thought, oh, right, yes, of course, the Salvation Army was newly established in the early 1880s. It came into being in the 1870s. And then in the same newspaper, there was the reference to disturbances brought about by the Skeleton Army. And I was like, what now? What's happening here? And that was a massive rabbit hole that I'd never heard of before. And nobody I know has ever heard of the Skeleton Army, but it was quite a big deal. It didn't just exist in Oxford. It existed in various towns and cities all over the south of England.
Well, they came from Weston-super-Mare, didn't they?
I know, I saw that too.
Weston-super-Mare alongside John Cleese and the Wurzels, I believe. All the best things come from Weston-super-Mare.
Absolutely, yeah, because when I realised that this was a thing, I assumed that it had started, like the Salvation Army, in the East End of London. But no, as you say, Weston. Who knew?
Well, it was very southern. I don't know, you may correct me on this, Alice, but I thought they weren't in the north. They were not anywhere in the north. They were all southern towns.
You will read on some very famous websites. Let's talk about Wikipedia. It was entirely a southern England thing. In fact, Wikipedia will tell you that it was entirely confined to the south coast. They clearly haven't read the Oxford papers, because Oxford is by no means a southern coastal town. There were a few disturbances attributed to the skeletons in the north. I don't know. Some people say that the Midlands are not the north, but certainly the Midlands. Well, but, they're not the southern England that Wikipedia and other places indeed will have you believe, because people did quote Wikipedia without really testing it. And if I can find out, as a complete amateur, if I can find out that that's not true just by reading the Oxford papers, how many other skeleton armies were there out there?
Yeah. Do you know how I envision the Skellington Army coming from Weston-super-Mare?
Go for it.
They're all in deck chair shirts. And sucking on rock, like aggressively sucking on rock.
They were not sucking on rock, Nikki. They were for booze, weren't they? Weren't they like kind of their main problem with the Salvation Army was kind of this thing against alcohol?
100%. That was the skeletons' only real problem with the Salvation Army, because Salvation Army were massively anti-alcohol. Their temperance, anti-alcoholism was one of their big platforms, because they saw that as the root of all evil. And so it was a bit like drugs now. So many people in the prisons were there because of drink. And there were so many more pubs now. I mean, really, literally every street corner had a pub, and often there'd be pubs in between the street corners. There were hundreds and hundreds. I've got a drinking map of Oxford, which was actually drawn up by the Salvation Army, and you just see them. They're all over the city.
Was it like different shot glasses and all the different places, or did it just mark all the pubs in the drinking map?
It just marks all the pubs. There's just a little red dot all over the place. It's a fantastic resource, this drinking map.
Not like park benches, where you can have a WKD.
There's a good thought. No. Although you see, there was a lot of kind of that going on. Not park benches, but we think of pubs now. But then they had pubs, they had taverns, they had beer houses, and all of these different places were slightly different. And you could designate your house a beer house and just open your front room as a beer house. I mean, you needed a license, but there were a lot of very, very low drinking dens, as it were. And the problem was that the place where the Salvation Army were trying to recruit new recruits, because they always went for the the poorest people who weren't being served by the nice middle-class Church of England. The Salvation Army's motto was from the guttermost to the uttermost. The poorest parish in Oxford, St Thomas's, also happened to be the brewery quarter. There were 4 big breweries there and probably half a dozen, if not more, smaller breweries. So you had a perfect storm. This is where the Salvation Army was doing their thing, strutting their stuff, having processions through the streets, singing and playing instruments and trying to attract people in. And they were walking past breweries and pubs and really getting up people's noses. So it was always going to turn to violence, frankly.
I'm with the Skeleton Army. I think, considering, I think if you walked through the centre of any town on a summer's evening, everyone's sat outside having their drinks, and you try and protest against alcohol, you will get an uprising.
Absolutely. And they used to go further than that. They would stand outside pubs praying. little bit of watching,
We shall save you. Not until I've finished this round, you won't. Sorry, they weren't in the north, were they?
No.
I found a poem. Should I find the poem that I found from the? This was on a Salvation Army.
It's not by William McGonagall, is it?
No,
we've discussed
it's not by
before.
William McGonagall. But it could be. It could be. Do you want to hear it? It's
Go on.
So this was apparently a chant that the Skeleton Army would make. The Salvation Army we must drive far, far away, for cannibals to eat alive far, far away. We will pepper and salt them too, and make them fit for a rare stew. An old head shall sail with the crew far, far away.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's interesting that because both the Salvation Army and the Skeleton Army had a habit of doing that. So one of the things the Salvation Army did to attract these very poor people who had no history of going to church was to take popular music hall tunes and then put Christian words to them, very kind of simple, catchy Christian words to them. And then they parade through the streets singing these things and endless repetition so that people could get the hang of the words really quickly. And what the Salvation Army, the Skeleton Army would do would be to follow them, having made up their own words to the same tune. And let's say their words were somewhat less Christian. So I had a whale of a time when I was writing the book, making up some of these very scurrilous rhymes. And I had to work out what musical tunes to put them to. And I had to do quite a lot of rabbit holing to find out tunes. Because if you're going to write words, you've got to have them fitting to proper tunes, So there's some swearing in this book, I'm afraid, because that's what Skeleton Army did,
And you've got your own playlist then in the back of the
100%.
book as to...
100%. I was just thinking the other day, actually, the audio versions of the Oxford Mysteries are being recorded now, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, are the people who are voicing Non and Basil going to have to sing these tunes? In which case, we'll have to have a meeting, and I'll have to teach them the tunes.
I want to hear one. I want to hear one now. Unfortunately, I want to know. I also really want to know more about the rabbit holes that you had to go down to find out what the tunes would be. But we have to bring this episode to a close.
It's that time. It's ran away from us. It always does.
It has. I was just putting together my Skeleton Army uniform and my flag because I'm totally joining. Don't try and take my booze or ditties because I will be all over that.
You're pro booze and ditties.
I am. And after I've had a few more drinks, I won't be able to say that anymore, will I? Not on this podcast, anyway.
Be very careful with your ditties.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, I'm going to join the Salvation Army.
They won't let you in.
Okay.
I'm going to join them. I will. Just like to be confrontational, bit of conflict. But next time, listeners, and we have warned Alice of this, because you said that you were a founding member of the Welsh crime fiction collective, Lisa and I are going to present you with a Welsh case. And as you are an impartial judge, I want you to judge on which case you think is the most rabbit holey.
Oh, okay. Fun.
I'm going to win.
Yeah, because I think Lisa, by next week, Lisa's going to be too drunk.
We're gonna team name us, are we? Or I'll be the Skellies, and you can be the Salvos.
I'll be the salvos, yeah.
Be the Sallys.
Let's rock. Well, listeners, do remember to follow the Red Rabbit on social media. Don't forget we are on Patreon as well. If you do sign up for a Patreon membership, it's very little fee, and you will get the next episode before everybody else, plus some bonus content that we've uploaded. We've got a lot of weird warrens on there, haven't we, Lisa?
And they are weird.
Very weird.
Imagine us unleashed.
Unleashed onto the world down a very, very dark, dirty, weird warrens.
Just digging. Hang on, I need the digging sound effect, don't I?
There you go. So we are going to leave you there. Remember to please do subscribe to us on whatever platform that you are listening to us on. Subscriptions there don't cost you anything. They do help us because we are a new podcast. And don't forget to check out Alice's books as well. Alis Hawkins has a couple of series, actually. You've got 3. You've got the medievals, you've got the Oxford, and you've got your coroner series.
Can I just say, when people are searching for me, my Alice is spelled A-L-I-S.
And also, Alice's books are all available on audio and are probably on, I'm assuming, BorrowBox.
They are BorrowBox, absolutely. The Oxford series isn't yet available on audio. It's being recorded now. But it will be
Probably
soon.
by the time this comes out. So, but keep looking, people. Don't let one slip you by. So we are going to say goodbye. And Lisa, make sure you shut the door so Alice can't get out.
Locking it, chaining. I was looking for something to make chain sound effects then. A bit dark.
She's stuck down here now, so
you might be pleased to know I couldn't find anything. Got some run-of-the-mill sellotape. I'm sure that will hold her.
We will see. So see you next time, listeners. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.